Welcome to our Behind the Mic with MAB podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Fontaine. Join me as I chat with vibrant radio hosts, intriguing television personalities, and the brilliant minds behind TV and radio stations in our broadcast community. Today, I am very, very excited to have the Kenny Windham with us. Kenny is a legendary broadcast leader whose impact on the radio industry spans decades. For many years, Kenny oversaw iHeartRadio stations where he helped guide organizations, teams, and talent through a significant growth and change in broadcasting. His career has been marked not only by leadership at the highest levels, but by lasting service to the industry itself. Kenny is a Mississippi Association of Broadcasters Lifetime Achievement Award recipient and has been honored with 2 lifetime memberships, which is very rare, recognizing his enduring contributions and influence. Today, he continues to give back as the historian for the MAB board, and he played a key role in helping establish the MAB Hall of Fame, ensuring the stories and legacy of Mississippi broadcasting are preserved for future generations. Now retired, Kenny continues to be a trusted voice in broadcasting, offering perspective shaped by decades of experience, humility, and a deep respect for the people behind the work. He also personally helped train me when I stepped into this role, making his insight not just historical, but personal and deeply impactful. It is an honor to welcome Mr. Kenny Windham to our podcast today.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda. I know it's a little trite to say, but I am flattered. I didn't know all that stuff about me.
There's so much more.
Oh, yeah. I think that's plenty. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here visiting with you.
Well, tell us a little bit about your history in the broadcast industry.
Oh, gosh. Mine kind of came about through fate. I had an older brother, 5 years older than me, who worked down at WLBT and then WJDX. That was the extent of their broadcast involvement because you were only allowed to have 2 FMs, an AM and FM and television. And they had JDX AM and JDX FM down there. But he had moved on into the film department, and they needed a nighttime telephone operator. Then they kept telephone operators on duty. The full-time person would leave at 4:30, and that person would come on and work till 9 o'clock at night, answering all the questions like, what time is it? Since they had an atomic clock down there, and everybody wanted the exact time, and also what's coming on television and that sort of thing. So we were sort of an information outlet. And I got that job. I went down and interviewed. I hitchhiked from Provine High School. In the 11th grade, I didn't have a car. I hitchhiked down, and they set me down and trained me, and I went to work. So from there, my oldest brother was in graduate school at Mississippi College, and I eventually took his place in the film department. But prior to that, they started a late-night news while I was there, and they needed a cameraman, and so they taught me that. So I got off the switchboard at 9, and then moved on in the studio and learned all that and did all that kind of stuff. In between, I would hang out with the radio guys on JDX, and that was fun at night. We had a kind of a small fraternity of guys in there in the evening. I think maybe 5 guys total were in the building at that hour of the night. And we had a real good time, and they took me under their wing, taught me a lot. So I had a good time in those days. I got to work the dance show on Saturday afternoon, and I did a lot of fun things, and then eventually moved on in the film department and spliced film, put together film reels. I was able to work 7 days a week and take a full load at college because everything I did was for yesterday and tomorrow in the film department. I put together film reels, and then I tore them down. for the previous day, full of commercials, and then learned how to kind of edit some films and make them shorter. Then they had a lot of 16 millimeter film in those days to fill the gaps where networks weren't on the air, and you'd have to take out segments. Wasn't as difficult because those films had cycled around to so many stations, and you could see where the other stations from the cue marks had taken segments out, so you just kind of follow what they did. But it was a lot of fun. It was a blessing. Worked with a lot of good people who helped me a lot, took me under their wing. And I'm not going to start naming names because I will mess up, start thinking, and most have passed on now, older folks. But, I look back on those people, especially, the radio and TV. A lot of the radio people that were on WJDX then had come from, eventually went into the TV side from radio, from WJDX. I guess primarily Alan B. and Woody A. staff, because they had worked on WJDX for years prior to that, before there was TV. And I think LBT went on there in maybe 1953. So I went to work down there when I was in the 11th grade in 1963. And I didn't really pay much attention to it then, but I've looked back on it so many times that those folks were the foundations of doing television. And I know the JTV folks were there as well doing the same thing. How did they learn what they were doing? It's looking back, and I don't remember any of them talking about going off to some school or whatever, but I think they pretty much learned by the seat of their pants. And, the engineer side came from radio, and they learned the TV side. Those guys are pretty flexible, and they can figure all that out. But all the other jobs, the continuity people, the traffic people, the news people, and, suddenly everything face in it instead of just a voice. We used to joke around on the radio once I got in radio that's all TV is. It's radio with pictures. So, but it was truly a pleasure. And then, at one point I finished college and I marched myself right up to the sales manager of television's office. There was an opening in TV, and I told him I want that job. I said, y'all told me to be patient, and if I worked in the film department, did what I was supposed to do, y'all would find a home for me eventually, because they didn't want me to go away. Well, I went, and he wound up hiring someone else instead of me, and he said, just be patient. Well, the other person, ironically, had experience selling over at JDX. So he was an experienced guy. And if I told you who he was, you'd be quite amazed. So he got the TV job, and I marched right over to the radio side and got the radio job. So I got hired, and that was the beginning of my radio career, and truly a blessing. I'm telling you, to be able to have the opportunity to grow in the radio industry and see all the changes and move up in that company and have so many great opportunities over the year. Now, I'll tell stories forever, and that could go on forever because I'm leaving out a lot of history about college and all that other stuff. I was initially pre-dental, pre-med, because that's what I was going to do, and then two problems. I worked 7 days a week. I didn't have a lot of spare time, and I couldn't make straight A's, and we didn't have a dental school here. I would have had to go to Baylor or someplace, and I threw in the towel on that and never took a communications course at MC. I knew those folks, and I liked those folks a lot. And I said, well, I'm getting my education being right here working in the industry, and I learned a lot. But the gentleman who got the TV job was Mr. Bill Clark, who plays the piano very well at Table 100 and around, and remains to this day a very good friend of mine. But Bill got that job. He was selling over at JDX. That was prior to the ZZQ days. It was JDX, AM, and FM. And the FM was really just sort of beautiful music. But it was quite a fun time. But to back up a little bit about what I was saying about those folks being the pioneers, it still fascinates me when I look back on it. there's so much history with WJDX and now WLBT. I think I've talked to you a little bit about those newspapers that the newspaper gave me. The newspaper had everything on in the papers themselves that they kept, and they transferred everything to microfiche. That's how long ago this was. So I've got those 4 pages. Judy Foster, who was their marketing person, called me up and asked me if I wanted those original 1929 papers that tell the story of how Lamar Life put WJDX on the air in 1929. Eudora Welty was the first copywriter. Her dad was with Lamar Life. He was the president, and we have pictures of Eudora and her father standing in front of the Lamar Life building. But I've got those newspapers framed in clear glass where you can turn them around and read all 4 pages. But it's an incredible history about how much it cost to put it on the air in 1929. Not the first in the state, but still very impressive. The studios were in the tower of Lamar Life, which is very interesting because that building is beautiful and still there. I think it's condominiums now. But that was the home of Lamar Life Insurance, which started in, I think, 1927. But a lot of ties to the radio there. And then, of course, they put the TV station on the air in, I think, 53. But that's the quickie, I guess. And then I got involved with the Mississippi Broadcasters.
Thank goodness.
Eventually,
we're so blessed to have you.
Thank you. I didn't mention that I moved on up into sales management, and Lamar Life sold the company, and that's when I moved into sales management, and then eventually into general management. I worked with Marshall McGee, who's a dear friend, and Marshall passed away, and we were a fabulous team. Marshall was extremely creative and knew programming very well, and I sort of channeled myself into the sales side. And I'd go in there and harass the guys on the air, but they would throw me out and tell me to get back to the front office. You don't live back here, But we had a good time. But radio is a fun business. Broadcasting is a fun business, and sometimes I worry about losing that aspect of it because it's entertainment. And you've got to look at it as entertainment. We're delivering a phenomenal service to the community. And all that we do with both radio and television, through public service efforts, through news and weather, and it's who you can turn to, those 2 mediums, and it's just incredible. Other mediums have certainly begun to fade away. When you look at what's happened to newspaper, I mean, they struggle. It's not what it was. And, time passes them by, but I think broadcast has been smart enough to evolve and continue to recreate themselves. But the basis is still there, and that's service to the public and service to the listener and the viewer. And I think as long as we can keep that at the forefront, you got to make money. You got to run commercials. People want to complain about that, but you got to pay for what you got, one way or the other. All right. That's enough of that.
So true. You've been talking about service.
Yes.
I feel like you're a service to our industry, and oh my goodness, you were involved in so many nonprofits and so many other organizations. Like, you're not really retired. You just spend your whole day volunteering, I think.
I don't think I make much money. Now, I am on one state board, and, they do pay $40 a meeting. Plus mileage. So, no, I'm on the Pearl River Valley Board. I actually chair that board now, and that's a very, very busy board. I would encourage anybody that can serve on a state board to do it, but they're busy boards. They really keep you involved. I've been on Mississippi Blood Services Board for about 35 years, and, of course, the Broadcasters Board, and you folks were nice enough to bring me back, and I guess my first broadcasters convention would have been in the early 70s down on the coast, and those were just all inspiring moments for a young radio sales guy, and had the opportunity to go down there, and I haven't missed many. I think I missed maybe one when I deployed. Army for a little play period in the desert. But then came back, and I did get an excused absence for that one.
Well, this past year. Yeah, it was last year. You had surgery.
Well, I have a lot of that. You know, I think
was there.
Doctors say they practice medicine, and I have given them ample opportunities to practice. It comes with age, I think. Yeah, I managed to come 3 days after a surgery.
Because you sent me the text on Thursday that said, hey, I'm in the ER. And I'm like, are you okay? And you're like, I'm about to have surgery, but I'll be at the conference next week. I was like, are you serious?
Well, you were giving me an award. I had to be there. Y'all propped me up in a corner, and I joined you. But it was a good day or two. Yeah, I didn't stay the whole time. I came a day late, and I got myself out of there the next morning.
Because you got on our Hall of Fame.
I did.
At conference.
That is an honor, and I can't tell you. I've got my 2 awards very prominently displayed in my home. Cherish them so much. It's a distinguished group that have received that. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about when I look at others who've been honored. It's much appreciated, I tell you.
It is. And our Radio Lifetime Achievement Award that I was trying so hard to keep a surprise. And Daniel, one morning I wake up and I was thinking, I called Carolyn. I was like, hey, has Kenny Windham RSVP'd for our awards? And she goes, oh, he never RSVPs for the awards, but I put him at your table because that's where he always wants to be. And I was like, he was getting our Radio Lifetime Achievement Award. So I was like, I should probably just, reach out to him and make sure he's coming. So I'm like, hey, Kenny, are you coming to awards? So he doesn't text me back. When he doesn't text, it's a sign. So he calls me and he's like, yeah, I got a problem. We have a party that night. I was like, Kenny, you have to come to the awards event. But I mean, it's this really big party, and we can't miss it. We go every year.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it was.
And I had to tell him a story. I remember I told you that we were going to give you your Hall of Fame award.
Yeah, you did mess me up there. I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Because I wanted to keep it a surprise.
Yeah.
But we did surprise you. He was like, well, I'll come for just a little while, and then you can give me my award, and I'll leave.
Yeah, that's right. I think I left it. What was the date of that? I don't remember.
It was April. It's always in April.
I don't know what it was, but glad I went. Had a good time.
I'm glad you did, too.
Yeah, I got an award.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
We really are. We're so blessed to have you. And I do think back about when I first started this job and had no idea what I was doing.
Nor did we.
And I would sit there in the office and try to get everything done through the day. And then I would have my Kenny list for when Kenny came in the door. And I would have like a list of questions.
Yeah.
And it would be a few hours into it. And then I'm like, Kenny, we're on question number 3 of 20. We got to speed it up a little bit.
Yeah, I remember those days in that dingy old office that we had. And, those were interesting times, needless to say, difficult times for the broadcasters. I'll toot my horn about you a little bit. You've been a blessing. I mean, I was on the committee that we were interviewing candidates up. We rented one of those suites up in the Hilton, and all these wonderful candidates were coming in the door, and they were all wonderful. And then, I knew you casually from Rotary, not that well at the time. And man, when you left, I told everybody, I said, look, I don't know what that lady's abilities are, but she knows everybody in America. And she will raise money for this organization. I said, y'all got to trust me. And they were like, well, tell us about her. I said, I can't. I don't know. All I know is she'll get it done. She's a go-getter. And it was a blessing that we hired you, and you've done great things for us. So that's some history, too. How long has that been?
6 years?
Oh, God, my goodness, yeah.
It
The
has
years
been,
tick
yes.
by.
It has been so much
Wow.
fun. I tell everyone I love my job. I really do.
Well,
And I
it's
love my
fun.
board. I'm just very, very blessed.
Yeah, well.
And we're blessed to have you as a historian because we're always like, hey, Kenny, like, what happened with this? And give us the background on this. And you
Yeah.
always know
Well,
everything.
Yeah, it's a fluid world. You know, broadcasting is more fluid than the world is fluid, I think, and that's the fun of it. I go back to what I said earlier. You just got to keep it fun because we entertain. Even when it's serious business, you're entertaining. You know, people are glued to get information, and I don't want anybody to ever lose that. It's so important. Young people coming up now, they have such a great opportunity in front of them, and certainly an opportunity that they have to embrace if they want to be a part of it, and they have to come into the world of broadcast, you know, looking up. How can I contribute? You know, how can I move up in the world? I remember when I used to talk to students a lot, and, you know, we've always had a need for broadcast engineers, and I'd say, you know, some of you in this room have absolutely no interest and don't know anything about the engineering side of our business, what keeps it all working, what keeps your sets on at home and your radio working. And, you know, if you get a chance, you know, you should explore some of that if you have any inclination to go in that direction. And I said, and the other thing is, yeah, it's very glamorous to think about being a television anchor person. Well, all of you are not going to qualify for that. You just won't be. So take some marketing courses, you know, learn marketing while you're there. And I think if you have broad knowledge skills, then you're going to succeed in whatever you do, and certainly in our industry, that's the case. You be ready for whatever they throw at you. You know, that's important.
Why don't you tell those that are listening, how did you end up with 2 lifetime memberships?
Well, now I've returned. You know, I died. I think I died and came back, and so I got. Yeah, I think I go back to these doctors practicing medicine. You know, no, I think that was just a mistake. I think the previous exec board had prior to you had given me a lifetime achievement award, and then they came back. Even that was before you. Yeah, I got the second one, and you know there was a big deal made of me getting a lifetime achievement award, and I said, "Look, I really appreciate this, but I've already got one." And the execs, "No, you haven't." I said, "Well, yes, I have." And I went home and I took a picture of it hanging on my wall. Well, now I have 2 hanging on my wall, so I'll have 2 lives. You know, y'all not through with me yet. I mean, I'm going to stay around for a little while.
You should just have like a whole MAB kind of bookcase thing going on.
Yeah.
With all of your awards from us.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
So what are some of your favorite stories?
Oh, my gosh. It's hard to pick a favorite story. I mean, you should have warned me about that before we came in and sat down. But favorite stories. Favorite stories are, you know, I guess pretty general. The fact that I had opportunity and I was able to do things in the industry, and to piggyback on what I've already said, to be able to get involved in the MAB and to learn more and more about all aspects of broadcasting, to have the opportunity to work on the TV side, certainly not in a major capacity, but again, working with the foundation of the industry, the people who started it. I wish I'd have thought more about that when I did it, because gosh, there were some great people. But I think so much fun was taking place down there at night. Yeah, I mean, some of it I'm not going to talk about, but we had mannequins there, and I forget what store that they belonged to, but they used them for commercials for.
Was this at conference or?
No, in the studio.
Oh, in the studio.
At
Okay.
night, between my telephone operator thing and my camera work on the late news. And these two mannequins, which, they would dress for TV commercials and all that, but they were affectionately named Nude Nick and Nude Nancy because they never had clothes on, obviously, at the TV station. So lights were turned off at night throughout the building, needless to say. If it was part of the building that wasn't being used, then lights were off, and you couldn't help but go down some hallways, and you would invariably run into Nude Nick and Nude Nancy, who were placed in an area where you would be very much frightened when you ran into them. But some of the older heads had a real good time doing that. And another real funny story was the TV. They had TV booth announcers then. You had the engineer, the switcher, the guy that handled all the switching on TV, and then you had an audio booth. Then you had a booth announcer who did all the breaks. All that was live. So that booth announcer would come over to radio and do newscast for radio. They were kind of next door to each other down this radio studio, and then and so he was a great guy. He really was. He's not alive anymore, but he's a great guy. It's John Capers, and John would have. They had a red light bulb up on the ceiling. He had a window where he could see into the board op in there, or the jock theoretically on the air on JDX. And when his mic was cracked, that red light bulb would come on. It's a regular light bulb. Well, occasionally, when the new wore off, somebody would unscrew that. And, back then, the news department had the old-fashioned big steel cameras with the big flashes and all that, and they would screw one of those flash bulbs in. And so when John would crack his mic, the big flash bulb would go off, and the wheels on his chair would move rapidly because he didn't know what was happening. And then I could remember one other time, he was just a glutton for punishment. They took all the powder out of a cherry bomb, but you still had the fuse, and they just opened the door and rolled it in there. And he looks over on the floor. We could see him from the other side, but it wouldn't explode and then I guess another hilarious story was when they did that late night newscast, they had, let's see, John Capers did the news, Milt Lawrence did the weather, and maybe one of them did sports as well. I really can't remember, but the studios then were Studio A and Studio B down there at Channel 3, and that's all been changed now. And then upstairs, they had viewing rooms, big glass rooms up there that have been, I think they're utilized for something else now. But anyway, they were continuing to upgrade, and they did an extension. They put new steel beams in that went over Studio B so that they were finally getting to the point they had transitioned to videotape versus 16 millimeter film. And they were building out a viewing room, a engineer board and all, where they could do TV production while other programming was going on in that smaller studio. So, these guys, they were just so funny and enjoyed what they did so much. So Ed Hobgood, who is kind of a great old radio/TV guy, he was a booth announcer, one of those tall, skinny guys who had a tremendous voice. At one point, he taught at Jackson State, as several around there did. But there was no glass in there at the time. So Hobgood would get, he also had, if you remember the old Schaefer fountain pens, and they had ink cartridges. Well, Hobgood had a bottle of ink and he would have a hypodermic needle, and he refilled his ink cartridges. He'd get him some ink and then squirt it into the cartridge, and he could refill his pen. Innovative, but a little cheap too. But it worked out well. Well, so he had this hypodermic needle for that, and so he gets a quart jar of water. And while John Capers is on the air, John, you could not break him up at all. Hobgood's up there squirting this tiny, tiny thin string of water down on Capers, and then they used that yellow canary paper. They didn't use teleprompters. And the paper was just, I was working camera, and I was dying. The paper's just dripping water, and water's just running down Capers' head. He never cracked a smile. We go to a break eventually, and he just kind of glanced up like, right back to his newscast. His newscast. And we were all just rolling. But you couldn't break the guy up. But Hobgood always enjoyed that. And he wore a little name tag. And I can't finish this story. I have to finish it privately.
Oh.
Because I don't know what this podcast is rated. I really don't. But anyway, his little name tag said Tishlube, Ahmed Hobgood, like Ahmed Hobgood. And, like he's from Egypt or something. Amhed, Hobgood, Ahmed Hobgood. And under it, in quotes, Tishlube. Well, I was a kid walking around there. You got it already?
Not yet. I'm still thinking.
I'm walking all around there for all these months and all. And finally, I get up the courage after I've worked there a while. This was back when I first started. And I said, you call everybody by their first name. Woody Asaph. I went to school with Woody's daughters, Deanie and Debbie, who we just lost one daughter, Debbie, not long ago. But Deanie, I see quite frankly. And Woody was wonderful. He was a wonderful, wonderful, kind-hearted man. But we were all first name. I was, a teenager, and I was calling these guys by their first name. So I go, hey, Ed, tell me about Ahmed Hobgood Tishlube. I said, you wear that name, and it's professionally made name tag, on little plastic name tags that you would order back then. He said, oh, you don't know? And I said, no. And he says, come with me. And we go in the JDX recording studio, which is a big room. They used to have singers, preachers, everything else. They used to get the Pineywood singers in there and record them on Saturdays, and just lots and lots of different programming things. But he sits me down at the microphone at a table out there, and he goes in the booth. Everything's reel-to-reel tape. And he said, now, I want you to say Tishlube in as many ways as you can. Just every refrain, Tishlube, Tishluba, Tishlube, Tishlube. And so okay. And I sit down, and I do all that. And he says, okay, come in the booth. And I go in the booth, and he takes the reels out, and he swaps them, and he plays it backwards. Now, I'm not going to finish the story. But when he plays it loudly, it is hilarious. Now, he's worn this name tag for years. You got it? I
got it. It took me a minute, but I got it.
Well, you should have been.
I had to really think about it.
You should have been sitting there.
You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. But Hobgood had more fun doing it. And back then, the industry could do those kind of things, and it was a lot more relaxed, I think. Certainly, it's still a very, very serious business, because, things were happening rapidly. Transmitters were changing rapidly. Antennas were changing rapidly. Cameras were changing rapidly. It was constant change. LBT was wonderful. They really were. JDX, after I went to work for them, the companies had split by then. and we moved out. They built that building out on Beasley Road. We stayed in the LBT building till that could be built and out there. And I was there till I left. It was a great facility. We added on to it. Good gosh, I was there through 3 editions where we did some unique things. A gentleman owned our company. I'll get emotional. Steve Hicks, greatest guy I ever worked for in my life. And I worked for some good ones. I really did. Herbie Confer, who had Key Market, who bought it from Lamar Life, and then Steve Sterling, Larry Patrick. You know Larry, I bet, in Washington. Larry was wonderful. Then Steve bought the company from Larry. Steve came from a radio family. We started building. We had, I think, 3 markets when he bought it. We had Jackson, we had Little Rock, and Greenville, Spartanburg. And I mean, the company was broke. And Steve scraped the money around to get it. His brother, Tom Hicks, owned the Texas Rangers and Dr. Pepper, but he wouldn't go to his brother. I mean, he wanted to do everything on his own. Just a fabulous, fabulous man. But Steve died last week, 2 weeks ago, and the funeral was Friday. I was supposed to go, but I had some health concerns. I was a little fearful of traveling until I get myself totally well. But we did something very, very unique that set the industry on its head. I mean, literally. Steve came to see me. That company was headquartered in Austin, and he walked in my office and sat down on the couch, much like you are right now. He said, here's what we're going to do. And he said, you're going to have to figure out how to do it. And I said, what are you talking about, Steve? We had a very, very good relationship. He said, we're going to get another radio station. I said, well, we can't. We're limited to 1 a.m. and 1 FM. And he said, no. In essence, the simplest way to put it is we're going to lease it. It's called a local marketing agreement. And he said, but we've already got the stations that a friend of mine wants to buy. He said, but we got to get him some financing. And I hope that you know some folks that can help us with that. To back up, Steve had gone on record as losing the most money in a radio deal. He bought the biggest radio operation in Austin, Texas, and then the downturn came. I lose track of time, and he lost everything he had on that deal. It was totally underwater. He wound up selling for much less than paid for it. And anyway, so he sends his guy over, who was a former Dallas banker. Steve went to UT, University of Texas, and this guy comes to town, and he's pretty buttoned up and slick. And I said, oh, we can get this done. I know people at First National Bank. We go to First National Bank, and they laugh at us, and they said, you're going to do what? Wait a minute. How are you going to guarantee this loan? Well, with our company. He said, no, your company doesn't have any money. So anyway, we walk out. I said, no problem. We'll go down the street. Alan B. Jr., whose father had worked, I mean, he grew up in that TV station with his father, Alan, who had been there. Alan loved it, and he carried it to his people. It's kind of the same reaction. No, won't do it. So I said, I got one more. And I went to Thomas Colbert at Community Bank. And we went out to Thomas's lake house out on the reservoir that night, and we had a good time visiting and talking about what all we could do. And Thomas loved the idea. He understood it. And the end results was the LMAs of today that at first everybody in the world was filing lawsuits. You can't do this, it's illegal. But we weren't taking control of the property at all. We were leasing. The owner was controlling the inventory. We kept some for ourselves if we chose to use it off of these 2 stations that we were buying, which were Mix 90, what wound up being Mix 96, 96.3, that the Holiday Company has now. So we wound up with that additional station. After a lot of lawsuits, the FCC threw their hands up and said they're not doing anything wrong. They don't own it. So then everybody and his brother started doing the same thing, and then it forced the SEC and the FCC to change the regulations and allow more ownership. And, we know where that's gone, both in radio and television, to multiple ownerships, and I'm sure we're not through yet. It's survival of the industry, and I think Steve saw that. Great guy, I'm telling you. But then comes the merger of our company, which we went to go back. We merged with Chancellor, Steve's brother's company. He had also, in addition to his Texas Rangers and that stuff, he also had major market radio stations. So merged them with ours. Then came the merger with Clear Channel. Clear Channel was a smaller company than ours at that time, but they had, I think, more infrastructure, so we wound up merging into them. We had grown the company then to a big company by then. There were 3 of us regional vice presidents, and then I think we had 6 in the end. And it really, the thing just exploded, and then with Clear Channel, it went on and on and on, and really was just, we were the largest out-of-home media company in the world. We had outdoor, we had television, and they finally sold off the TV, and radio now is still called the outdoor is still called Clear Channel Outdoor. But that's the beginning of it all. Not many people realize that started in Jackson and started on the couch in my office with Steve Hicks and myself. But Thomas, I love Thomas Colbert to death. He's been a friend for a long time, but Thomas really gave us what we needed, to get this thing done. And it was just incredibly successful. But then in the merger of iHeart and Clear Channel, the FTC got involved and said, you got too much critical mass, financial critical mass. So you got to get rid of the last one that you got. Well, we probably could have fought that and won, but Steve called me up and he said, no, it'll hold up the merger, and Jackson, Mississippi can't hold up the merger of these 2 huge companies. He said, but you can get another radio station and start over. So I called my buddy Johnny Boswell, who I love dearly, and Melissa, who's running the company, and Maureen, Johnny's wife. They're like family. And I told Johnny, I said, look, I got this deal. We've got 96.3, the second best signal. I'm sure they say it's the one signal now to Miss 103. And the other tall tower, they're on JTV's tower. And I'll swap with you for your FM that he'd done a move in, but was still out. This antenna was somewhat away from Jackson. Didn't have near the penetration into town. And I said, you give us $1 million and we'll do the deal. And for you to get this station and me take yours, and you put $1 million and you give us $1 million as a deal for you. Johnny comes back and said, I'd love to do the deal, but I can't give you $1 million. So I called my guy up. He said, do it now. Get the ball rolling. That's what Steve tells me. He said, we got to roll. We got to get this thing done. So Johnny got that great signal, and we got his station. Then 6 months later, Johnny calls me up and said, well, Eddie Holiday wants to buy it. And he said, I can't walk away from it. So I love to tell everybody, I made Johnny Boswell richer.
Yes, you did.
We have a good time with that. But, it was just such a good feeling for me to see Johnny take that, do well with it and then make something off of it. He deserves it.
I've heard that story, but I had not heard the previous one.
About
Mr. Colbert and how all of that came out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I need to give Thomas more credit because, you can't move in this world without a little something in your pocket jingling around. And Thomas made that possible. the two big guys had turned us down, and I should have gone to Thomas first because Thomas is so innovative and thinks that way. And then at one point, Thomas and I came close to buying a station cluster in Jackson, Tennessee. But some old coot outbid us on it, and we lost it. We didn't make it. And then I have told Thomas this story that it was only minimal years after that Clear Channel came back and bought that Jackson, Tennessee cluster for considerably. We would have made a lot of money off of it. But there was some old fella, and he specialized in the company was bankrupt up there for all the wrong reasons. I went up there and looked at it, and I said, this thing's a home run. If you just take the two guys that own it out, they're stealing all the money, you know. Those are harsh words, but they were living very high out of the station. If you just got them out of the picture and found you a way to get a general manager in there for a reasonable amount of money, I could see no way it would lose money. And it didn't for the folks that wound up. You know, good story. I would have enjoyed being in business with Thomas.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed all of your stories.
Well, they'll drag on forever.
It sounds like y'all had so much fun.
We did.
In the workplace, like pranksters. I think it sounds like it.
No, it's fun.
But fun. And it made me think about the fact that just talking to Joni McLean and
Joni worked there with
Tim
us.
Barber and some of the others, and I was thinking back to all of them getting together on a regular basis, even now.
Yeah.
And they just, loved working together and
we had great.
Loved getting back together. I think
Diane
that's awesome.
Black, I don't know whether you ever knew Diane.
Yes.
Hudson. Diane's ill now, and I got the opportunity to see her about a month ago. And Anna Catherine Clark then, she's Anna Catherine Scott now. Anna Catherine left us and went to Washington for working at a TV station for, 30 years, and came back home. We go to church together. I see her quite often. Marshall, of course, passed away. Marshall and I had many opportunities to go out on our own, but we were having so much fun, literally having fun, out at JDX and ZZQ. When we changed ZZQ, that's a whole other story, and that'll take us another hour and a half. But when that changed from album rock to the country, those were not good days. It was great days for the company, but it was not good days around there.
I bet that was crazy.
Yeah, we put a guard in the building for a while.
Oh, serious?
Oh, yeah.
You can tell you just light up when you talk about, everything, your whole past. You can tell that you truly loved every minute of it.
Yes. I mean, somebody who had no intention of ever staying in the industry, and things fall in shape. If you're patient and listen to what's coming down, you do what you got to do. And, I talked about the influence that the people I worked with had on me. And I was a kid down there working, and they all looked out for me. The ladies in accounting were constantly going over talking to the general manager about making sure I had better accounts to the point where it embarrassed me, but I appreciate it. But you know what? I got a few better accounts.
They were taking care of you, weren't they?
They did. It was just a great experience, and to see the industry grow and thrive, and the things that you're having the opportunity to deal with now. Things like, podcasting. Who would have ever thought it? Things like internet broadcasting. Who would have ever thought it? And it just continues to go on and on. I mean, there's just so many good things out there. I'll keep it up. Now, don't bring up any other opportunities, or I'll keep going all day.
I know, and I think our time is about up.
I would think so.
Right, Daniel? He's like, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, Kenny, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Sorry for my little bit of emotion, I tell you.
No, I think that's so sweet. I love it. Very sweet. Well, thank you. We appreciate you so much. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you
personally for all that you have done for me and taught me, and you've just taught and mentored so many in our industry.
Well, nobody teaches Amanda. Amanda learns, and you better get out of her way. I'm telling you.
No, I don't know about that. But you're a true legacy, and thank you for all you do for us.
Thank you. Good luck.